What's your take on all this UAP disclosure shit?
I'm shocked that you would ask that.
Come on, man.
Yeah, that was a fascinating hearing. That was a fascinating hearing.
Yeah.
And
was it shocking at all to you?
No. I think I mean it was. I loved listening but I can't say that anything came out of it, even with Dave Grush's testimony. I mean, he kind of come out there before, but I think a couple of things. I think it's excellent that we're actually having these hearings and that there's a subcommittee and that they're actually looking at this issue, because I think the more transparency, the problem the government's had in the past is not being transparent enough. And so I think that was great. I think David Fravor, I've had a chance to sit with him in the past. And
what was your impression?
I think he's very credible. I was talking with Jamie earlier. You don't get to that point, right? You're not a commanding officer on a carrier. He was on the Nimitz at the time in 2004. You don't get to that point by being irrational or hallucinating up in the air or, just being whimsical. And the same with the other fellow, Ryan Graves, the other pilot. He was flying Hornets out of Virginia Beach about 10 years later when he reported on some of these incidents. So that, to me, is very credible. And I have not seen anything from the Pentagon or from the government that, as an example, explains Fravor's encounter. And also, I mean, look, he had a wingman. Her name was Alex Dietrich. She was a lieutenant commander at the time. She observed the same thing. And they have radar lock, right, down on the carrier. They knew what they were... There wasn't just one person looking up in the sky and saying, "Oh, I see a light," or "I see something." Right? This was a very legit sighting, and there's been no explanation as to what it is. So it is a legitimate UAP, unidentified, anomalous or anomaly, phenomena, and so I think that's one thing. I find David Fravor extremely credible. I've never met Ryan Graves, but again, given his experience and given the fact that he wasn't the only person seeing this, right, off of Virginia Beach back in 2014.
And with Ryan Graves, when they upgraded their sensors, they upgraded the capabilities of these jets. That's when they started seeing all these things. And he said it was shocking that they were encountering them all the time.
Yeah, and some of those, fine. You can, whatever they may be, they're just, you've got a more sophisticated system on board. You're just seeing things out there that you wouldn't have picked up before. Okay, and so some of those things then become maybe sightings that then are explained, right? What is it? Is it a balloon? Is it a drone? Whatever it may be. But when you get an experienced pilot flying by and saying, "Hey, I saw something. It was a cube inside a sphere." Let's at least log it, record it without any criticism or pushback. Right? Have a way to investigate, and that's been their problem, and that's what they talked about during the hearing. Also, again, they've talked about this before, but if you stigmatize, the pilots that are seeing these things, then of course you're only getting. And what did Graves say? He said like 5% get reported, right? So, and that's because nobody wants to, get back on deck or land and say, "Yeah, I saw so. I saw a UAP or I saw a UFO back in the day." So you have to make the system more accessible, right, for the sightings, and then you have to have a way for national security purposes to investigate them.
What do you think these things are?
I don't know.
What's your gut?
Yeah. I think. I think the logic of saying that we're doing this because if you have something out there that you observe that you can't identify propulsion or any sort of known to us systems, then that's a problem. So Is it a hostile element? Is there, first of all, is it just something that is showing up on the radar and it's a natural phenomenon and it's a whatever parallax or whatever they call it? Then fine. Or is it something from a foreign government, that new technology being developed, propulsion systems, materials science, whatever it may be, and they are working on these things all the time, right? Hypersonics is the perfect example, right? The Chinese and the Russians are, frankly, still ahead of us in hypersonics capabilities, right? Because they've invested longer and more effort into developing hypersonics systems. So you have to figure out, is it a hostile foreign government doing this? And then the other part is, all right, well, is it whatever Dave Grush says, non-human, or is it a legitimately not from Earth? That can't be taken off the table, right? I mean, look, it's we've said this before. I'm not smart enough to know what I don't know, right? I mean, well, maybe I am, but we've explored such a tiny part of space, right, that it would be ridiculous for us to think that we don't, that we can write it off, right? That it's not there. Right? I have no idea, right? But I do know that you can't discount anything because, again, going back to the reason why you do it, it's in our national security interest to figure out what the hell it might be. And at some point, if you start with, like right now, the new office is whatever it's called, typical government, the all-domain anomaly resolution office, right? That's what they came up with. Hilarious. At the Pentagon, yeah. So this guy, or this person, Dr. Kirkpatrick, runs it, I think. He's the director. And they've said they've got, upwards of 800 cases that they're investigating. So,
jeez.
Yeah, and it's growing. I mean, some reports say it's growing by like 100, 150 cases a month, right, in terms of sightings. They then get logged in, and now they've got to investigate. Well, that's a smart thing, right? They do that. And maybe you take off 90% of them, or even more, but you end up with this short list of things, perhaps like the Tic Tac in 2004 with David Fravor, where you just don't have an explanation. Okay, fine. Then be more transparent about it, right? And Ryan Graves said something interesting during the hearings, and he said that if the general public or if Congress could see the sensor and video data that he's seen, then it would change the national conversation, right? That's a really interesting statement from a experienced former pilot, right, from an F-18 pilot. So that deserves more scrutiny,